Hi, I'm Dr. Nay, and I'm here today with Chef Amber from the Source Cafe, and she is going to share her story of healing with us. Chef Amber is a classically trained chef who 4 years ago opened an extraordinary store called The Source.
Thank you.
And we're going to explore how the wisdom is in the wound. And you and I have spoken about that. So where do you want to begin?
I guess I want to begin with, because I always think of my childhood and what really inspired me today through all of my pain that I went through. And really it started with, it all focuses around low self-body image for me at a very young age.
Okay.
So that's the beginning of my story of how I evolved today to open up The Source.
When did you realize that you had this low body image or body dysmorphia maybe?
Body dysmorphia is a perfect word.
Yeah.
You know, early memories of 4 or 5 years old. I've never really been happy with my body until about a year ago. I found self-body love. I know, and I'm 40. So
that was
I know,
a long journey.
Long journey, and so I feel like my whole life I was always comparing myself to my skinny mom, my skinny family.
Okay.
My dad was a photographer, skinny models.
Okay.
My skinny girlfriends. Started the whole dieting early.
How early do you think you started to diet?
I did my first diet at 13, but I had my first kind of weird behaviors with food around like 7, 8 years old. Never feeling like I could get enough to eat, hiding food, sneaking food, restricting food, all of that kind of stuff that was all around my body. And I was never an overweight kid. I just had it in my head that I was chubbier than the other girls.
So the constant comparison,
Always.
which actually is a really big cause of depression.
Yeah.
So the constant comparison led you to this really distorted image of yourself.
Big time.
Yeah, which then fueled this interesting relationship with food.
Exactly.
It sounds like.
And I really believe that I have a sugar addiction or had a sugar addiction.
Okay.
And sugar was my way to comfort myself. Food became my friend.
Yeah, so it was a source of comfort, but then paradoxically, it was kind of the enemy almost.
Exactly.
And you mentioned sugar.
Yes.
Yeah, can you go, what was going on with you and sugar?
Yeah, so I believe that sugar is an addiction just like anything else.
Yeah.
And I believe I was born an addict.
Okay.
Like
your body craved it, like
craved it. I just chose it. Exactly.
Okay.
I just chose it over alcohol or drugs.
So it was a coping mechanism.
It was a coping mechanism.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And there's so much research now about sugar and what it does to us.
Yeah, I mean it does.
Yeah.
I think they say that cocaine and white sugar does the same thing to your brain, or sugar's right up there. I mean, there's a lot of research.
Yeah.
So it was my drug of choice, and it
Okay.
made me happy, and I was able to hide it because it obviously doesn't. I'm not wasted off of sugar.
Right.
So you can hide eating sugar. I could hide
Right.
it from my mom. I could hide it from my friends, my boyfriend, and then of course God granted me the passion for cooking. I always knew as a little girl that I wanted to work with food or become a chef, and started cooking family dinners at 8, 9, 10.
Wow.
And then
I wish my kids did that.
and it's a joke because my mother doesn't like to cook, but I learned a lot of my cooking from my grandmother.
Okay.
I have early memories of that.
So here you are having this very complex relationship with food.
Yes.
And yet here you are working with it every single day.
Every day.
How did you manage that? I mean, how did that affect you?
Well, it definitely allowed me to eat more. To feed my addiction, because then there's just we're always eating. I mean, there's always
you have to taste the
cooking
food
and
to make
tasting
sure it tastes
and
good. Yeah.
the late night hours lead to late night eating, late night drinking. I mean, it was just became such a toxic, crazy lifestyle.
So it kind of snowballed.
Just snowballed.
Okay.
Just completely snowballed, and then just started to create some really unhealthy eating habits.
Because so the pattern continued.
Pattern continued, absolutely.
Yeah, and what did that do to your sense of self and your mood?
I would say I've hid behind, isolated, disconnected from people, hid behind food. It was easy to.
Yeah.
It was really easy just to, now that I'm, on this kind of spiritual journey and working through this, I'm realizing how much I used to disconnect and really isolate with food and how unhappy I was with my body. And I think as an outsider, somebody would say to me, God, you're so beautiful.
Yeah,
but I was
definitely.
so sad. and always just was never happy, never loved my body. I mean, I remember reading a book about self-love 8 years ago, and I didn't know what that was, Nadine.
Aww.
And I was like, all these years, but I'm very bubbly, and I'm this bubbly, outgoing Gemini, So I would fake it till I make it.
So people didn't know this other side of you.
No.
It was really almost secretive.
It was
which
very
also
secretive.
Sometimes you create even more shame.
Well, it was a lot. There's a lot of shame because then my sugar addiction started to really manifest the older I got. And that made me feel just so much more shame, and it caused a tremendous amount of health problems, which is part of my story.
Okay, physical health problems, right? Because we're psychobiological beings, right? So the psyche and the brain and body are all working together. Okay, so then now it's even manifesting physically. Okay.
For adrenal fatigue, high cortisol levels, menstrual problems, completely hormonal imbalance, thyroid problems, and it's this hamster wheel that I was on, basically fighting myself, binging on sugar, restricting, it was this horrible, awful cycle. I started to have a lot of pain in my body and in my joints and high inflammation. So what happened when I was at my other restaurant, and I'm working 80-hour chef hours a week, and then I'm drinking too much and I'm eating too much sugar, and
everything in excess.
Everything in excess of me. I'm overworking, drinking too much caffeine, high stress, and it's just this ball of
so it makes sense that your body would just start to
completely
decompose.
And I had a hip surgery, a hip scope. 6 years ago, and that was leading up into my journey of exploring this self-love and realizing I don't want to live like this anymore. And
it was it the hip? Was it going in for the surgery?
It was.
Okay, is that like your rock bottom?
That was my rock bottom, and also knowing that they said, well, we're going to have to do a second hip surgery on the next hip, a hip scope, and I said I want to heal myself with food. Something came to me and said, I want to heal myself with food. The food that we eat can nourish our bodies. And so I started to develop a turmeric tonic and selling it to customers at my old restaurant, and started to try to ask, I'm very spiritual, very faithful, and started to ask God, universe, what's the next step? How can I help and inspire others? Send me signs. And all of a sudden, this is kind of my story on how the source evolved. Through my own health challenges and journey, because I'm telling you, I have been in pain with this since I've been a little girl, and if I could just help and inspire somebody through this story, just one person, would be amazing. That would be that's part of my life purpose.
Find what worked for you.
And it had, for me, it's inner. It had to start inside with that love.
With that love. That radiates from your eyes and from your restaurant, and that's why the name is perfect.
It is perfect,
right?
I know.
We are the source.
We are the source, absolutely. All connected.
Oh, Amber, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
For
Thanks
sharing.
for having me. Absolutely.
I just love your story, and I love your food.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.